Chapter 22. For you I once gave my all. The hot water was scalding as she steeped a pot of fresh tea. Shen Han sat on the sofa, his eyes flickering slightly as he watched her place the teacup down, and then deliberately choose a seat a bit farther away from him. "Afraid I'll eat you?" Shen Han asked. "No, I'm just used to sitting here." Shen Han was noncommittal, took a sip of tea, and looked around her small apartment, a tidy two-bedroom and one-living-room layout of 90 square meters. The complex seemed old from the outside, but inside it was clean and comfortable, much like her, quiet and easy to be around. However, Su Shu had been giving him a bit of a headache lately. "Haven't had dinner yet." Su Shu nodded, thinking to herself, "Isn't that a silly question? Can't you see the soup still cooking in the kitchen? Can't you smell the aroma filling the house?" Shen Han's indifferent gaze subtly swept toward the firmly closed bedroom door, and Su Shu, with her keen eyes, noticed. "Zai is still asleep." Shen Han grunted, showing no sign of embarrassment at having his thoughts exposed. Looking into Su Shu's eyes, he said, "After many years, I didn't expect you'd keep it a secret for so long." Jiang Meili said the child was Su Shu's, but he didn't believe it at all. His displeasure arose from facing Jiang Meili's accusations and the fact that Su Shu showed no intention of rebutting them. What was the child's relationship to her, then? Regardless of the relationship, Shen Han wasn't foolish. He was aware that Su Shu liked him and how much she cared about his opinion of her. Yet, that night, she seemed indifferent to whether or not she appeared dignified in his eyes, which made Shen Han feel that something was off. When had it started, and what had provoked it? When did Su Shu begin not to care about maintaining her image in front of him? Tonight, his sudden visit here was something even he couldn't explain. After social obligations, he found himself driving and inexplicably ended up at her apartment building. Seeing the orange-yellow light shining from her window, he felt an urge and came up. Sitting here in her presence, watching her constantly look down and rub her hands, Shen Han finally confirmed something. Su Shu had stopped revolving her world around him. Her life seemed to be heading in a direction beyond his control, and he was not comfortable with it. Su Shu truly didn't know how to face Shen Han. All she wished for in this life was to never meet him again, but ironically, the more she wished to avoid someone, the more they appeared before her, a tangled mess impossible to escape. When Shen Han spoke of many years without seeing each other, it was sarcasm on his part. If calculated by the time since her rebirth, yes, it had been many years since they had seen each other geographically, but they had never lost touch over video calls or mobile phones in the past few years. How could it have been many years? Yet, from her perspective, spanning from her previous life to now, they truly hadn't seen each other for many years. So much so, that the unexpected sight of Shen Han appearing in her home left her at a loss on how to treat him. In her previous life, she had waited for him to come back, even though he never gave her a single promise. But everything he did fueled her hope, as if they could be together again the day he returned. For Su Shu, who had harbored feelings for him for many years, nothing was more important than this waiting. She waited and waited until the news of his marriage alliance with Jiang Corporation flooded the news. And that was when she understood that to Shen Han, an orphan like her was utterly worthless. The wedding of her dreams would never be granted by him. In her past life, she wasn't like she is now. Back then, she was young, unable to withstand the blow and unable to let go of him. With no dignity left in her world of emotions, she endured all the pain and humiliation to stay by his side as a secret lover shamed into hiding. All because he said, "Su Shu, having you by my side makes me truly happy." Yes, for his happiness, she sacrificed all of her own. Later, when life became so difficult that he was too overwhelmed to care for her, she finally realized that her existence was just like the dolls Zai placed on the bedside. When she liked them, she would pick them up for a hug, but when no longer needed, they could be put back again. Sometimes she envied the little dinosaur that Zai held in her arms every day. At least Zai, who didn't speak, always wanted to carry it with her. As for Su Shu, in her past life, in order to keep Shen Han, she broke her own bottom line and became his underground mistress that he couldn't be seen with. Those 3 months were the most painful time of her life. She would ask herself every day what she was living for. When you love someone, sometimes you don't think straight. She had loved Shen Han for so many, many years. After her parents passed away, her world only had room for Shen Han. Whatever he wanted, she was willing to give. He said, "Su Shu, do you want to be my girlfriend?" And she, brimming with joy, thought she had gained the whole world. He said, "Su Shu, I want to go abroad to further my studies." And she, nodding with tears in her eyes, sent him off, not wanting to hinder his education. He said, "Su Shu, I miss you." And she would count the time difference every day, drinking coffee and fighting sleepiness to talk to him. As long as he said it, she was willing. But in the end, what he wanted was a family with a distinguished background that could help him soar in his career. A matrimonial family that Su Shu truly did not have. Su Shu's entire family consisted only of herself. All she owned was the few million she had scrimped and saved, but what was that to him? It wasn't even worth one of his cars. It was really at that moment, for the first time, Su Shu grew up. She understood for the first time what it meant to be well-matched in social and economic status. When Shen Han's mother scorned her in the past, saying she wasn't suitable for the Shen family, Shen Han would reply, "What I like is what's suitable." She, the fool, believed it, all of it. To her, Shen Han was her sky. Whatever the sky said, she took as truth. But in the end, she saw clearly that indeed what Shen Han liked was what was suitable, because he liked what was suitable for him. Jiang Meili's family background was suitable for him, so he was able to make himself like it. In fact, any bystander could see these things clearly and plainly, but she was so deeply immersed that she couldn't see anything clearly, leading to her being abandoned in the wasteland to fend for herself. Memories laced with hurtful stabs weren't something Su Shu wanted to think about. When she was abandoned by the Shen family, why didn't he appear? Was it because he was afraid to face the guilt in his heart, or was it because in the end, he didn't want to see her at all? The heart of a maiden in love is always tender. The affections of those days dried up bit by bit in the barren nights of the wasteland. Su Shu thought that day was her last in this world. Thinking of her parents in heaven, she wasn't scared. It just felt as if her heart had been hollowed out. Emptiness filled with cold air, and her body shivered from cold. When she lost consciousness, she thought death might be a relief, for a dead heart no longer hurts. She had given up hope then, yet it was precisely in a muddled daze that she heard a deep voice near her ears, which sounded really pleasant in retrospect. "Here, give her some water to drink, then put her on my back." Remembering the past, Su Shu became distracted unconsciously. Shen Han had noticed long ago, but he didn't interrupt. He was extremely surprised as he had never seen such a world-weary expression in Su Shu's eyes, nor had he ever seen such a relaxed and satisfied look in them. He didn't know what she was reminiscing about, yet had a strange and somewhat uncomfortable intuition. The memories that made Su Shu feel relaxed and content, it seems, were not because of him. "Have you been well lately?" Suddenly, the man's voice pulled Su Shu's drifting thoughts back to reality. She paused, then nodded slightly. "I've been quite good." Shen Han frowned slightly, seemingly unsatisfied with her reply, but at the same moment he couldn't articulate what made him discontented. Years had passed since they last met, and now seeing him again, Su Shu was genuinely a bit restrained. Even though facing Shen Han, she knew her heart no longer raced as intensely as before. Yet his existence had spanned her entire adolescence, that most naive time when he was her whole world. "Hate him?" Su Shu didn't know herself. The memories of the past had been mostly diluted by the tough life that followed. Besides, in the life that ensued, there was such a domineering man who forcefully intruded into her life, making her past with Shen Han feel like a dream from a lifetime ago. Meeting him now felt like revisiting a dream from her girlhood. It was a dream, not life, and once awake she was awake. Yet to say she didn't hate him, Su Shu couldn't manage that. Was she so kind-hearted that, after having her sincere love crushed to pieces, she could still say, "I still love you and bear no grudges for what happened"? Was she a fool? When she loved someone, of course, she sought reciprocation and hoped that after giving her all, the other person would like her back. As for what she had given, she could let go. She could take a loss. It was nothing as long as she was alive. She, Su Shu, could afford to lose. But having fallen into a pit once, couldn't she wish to walk around it the next time she saw it? Shen Han was her abyss. In her past life, she'd almost failed to climb out of it. This life, upon seeing him, her first instinct was to avoid him. It would be best if you just pretend you don't know me, and I will do the same. In this life, you take your broad avenue and I'll cross my single log bridge. Let's not cross paths. We'll each return to our own homes, to our own mothers. Isn't that much better? Yet Shen Han came uninvited. At that moment, Su Shu felt like laughing, a bitter kind of laughter. In all the years she had known Shen Han, she had begged him countless times in her past life to come to this little apartment to keep her company, to no avail. And now his tall and majestic frame was actually sitting on her ordinary fabric sofa. Reborn, nothing felt right anymore, Su Shu thought. Seeing that her every response was minimal, the delicate features of her pretty face clearly read, "I'm not comfortable." Did his presence put pressure on her? Shen Han's eyebrows quirked slightly as he undid the button of his suit at the chest, leaning back against the sofa with one long leg casually draped over the other knee. Already a man of exceptional demeanor, he now exuded a different kind of languid elegance, not showing the slightest discomfort in the small apartment, as if it were his own even on the first visit. Just as in his eyes, Su Shu was still his. After returning to the country, his most pressing concern was dealing with the leadership of Shen Group. He planned to look for Su Shu after sorting out his work. However, the memory of her cold and distant gaze that night couldn't be erased from his mind. When he was working, her face and that of the little child kept floating before his eyes. Shen Han immensely disliked this feeling of losing control. Furthermore, the sense of rejection from Su Shu, the unwillingness for him to be in her apartment tonight, he disliked it equally. His mood was somber, his dark eyes became deep and obscure. He needed to know exactly where things had gone wrong, such that within a month of not seeing her, this girl not only had a 5-year-old little girl, but also harbored thoughts of leaving him. Leave him. The thought that a girl who had liked him for more than 10 years could entertain such an idea made Shen Han's eyes darken profoundly. Shen Han was the kind of man whose mere presence could lower the atmospheric pressure around him by several degrees. Su Shu sighed inwardly, trying to think of some reason to get this huge idol out of her small apartment. Just as she was racking her brains, suddenly the rice cooker beeped. The rice was ready. Su Shu, still dazed, lifted her head. Shen Han had been observing her reaction all along. Seeing her stupefied moment, he suddenly regained the feeling of their past interactions, and his lips softened unconsciously. Su Shu suddenly thought of a good excuse. She stood up slightly apologetic and said, "Well, it's late, and I haven't really prepared anything, maybe another time." "You haven't eaten yet." Shen Han suddenly looked up, interrupting her excuse. Su Shu froze for a moment. No, not yet." Shen Han nodded slightly, indicating he understood. Then he stood up from the sofa. Su Shu was relieved, thinking he was finally leaving. But the next second, Shen Han simply took off his jacket, unbuttoned the cuffs, rolled up his sleeves and walked past the coffee table to the kitchen. "I just got off work, and I haven't eaten either. Let's eat together." Su stood behind him, speechless. From behind the door, a timid little head peeked out. Resigned, Su turned around, walked over and picked up Zai, who was rubbing her eyes sleepily. She looked back at Shen Han, who was making himself at home in the kitchen, took a deep breath, and without saying a word, took Zai to the bathroom to wipe the sweat from her face caused by sleeping. It's easy to invite a deity, but hard to send one away, especially one she never wanted to invite in the first place. As soon as the bathroom door was closed, Shen Han put down what he was holding, leaned both hands on the kitchen counter, and looked deeply in the direction of the bathroom. She had changed. Never had he felt this reality more acutely than now. He was curious about what could have happened in the past month that changed her so completely. She was no longer the rabbit-like Su he knew. Instead, she exuded an inexplicable and mysterious aura. How could a person change so drastically and rapidly? Suddenly, his gaze fell on the computer screen beside the kitchen counter. On the screen was the shopping interface Su was using before his arrival. Almost as if possessed, he scrolled up and down to see what she had been buying. After a while, he grew puzzled. It was the cusp of spring and summer, so if she was buying clothes, shouldn't she be buying light summer wear? Why then had this girl ordered a bunch of winter clothes? A flicker of confusion crossed his mind, but Shen Han dismissed it the next moment, thinking Su might be buying off-season. However, Su shopping list was too long, and as he scrolled further down, his concerns deepened. What was she buying all these things for if she was living a normal life? Some daily necessities like toilet paper, towels, soap, and similar items were normal, though buying them by the box was a bit odd. Perhaps that's just how women shopped. Next on the list was outdoor gear, and from his recollection, she was not someone fond of outdoor activities like hiking or diving, yet she had purchased comprehensive equipment. Could it be that she was planning a trip recently? He scrolled further, and any sense of ease on his face quietly evaporated. His cold gaze settled on the men's outdoor gear, and his mouse lingered without moving. A heavy hammer seemed to suddenly strike his chest. Shen Han frowned, as if reluctant to admit something, and stubbornly continued to scroll down. The more he scrolled, the darker his expression became. Below were tools Su had previously ordered: axes, hammers, saws, pliers, nails, conduits, screwdrivers. What did she need all these tools for? Further down, Shen Han felt a chill down his spine. A full set of men's underwear for various styles and seasons. The sizes clearly weren't his. Banged. Su who was in the bathroom washing Zai's face, was startled by a loud noise from the direction of the main door and pushed the door open to look. In the small apartment, Shen Han was nowhere to be seen. Shen Han was unpredictable, but Su didn't take it to heart. All her attention was captured by the lake rice she had just cooked. She never imagined that mere rice could give her a taste of happiness. It was certainly an eye-opening experience for her today. She picked up a piece with her chopsticks, scrutinizing it from left to right, wondering what made this rice so delicious. Could it really be because the villagers used spring water for farming? She had always thought that was just a marketing ploy to sell at a high price, but it was only when she actually tasted it that she could distinctly feel how different it was from ordinary rice. Perhaps she was too distracted while eating, because Zaya-Asu, who had been very focused on her food, looked at her with a small spoon and then scooped up a small spoonful of white rice to examine it just like her. Seeing this made Su laugh uncontrollably, and she couldn't help but reach out and ruffle the little one's head. She was so adorable it almost hurt. This lake rice was so good, she really wanted to buy more, but it was much more expensive. If she purchased it, she would definitely have less stored food. Besides, she wanted to buy some other things too. Should she really spend so much money on this incredibly tasty lake rice? Sushu found herself in a dilemma. However, it wasn't long before she stopped feeling conflicted, because she noticed that Zayasu had unusually eaten 2 small bowls and seemed very happy, holding her dish and enjoying her dinner immensely tonight. After having Zayasu, she felt she was no longer as strong as before, capable of making do with any lifestyle. Instead, she wanted to create a good living environment for Zayasu. Whenever Zayasu showed interest in something, she treated it like a new discovery, buying everything related to bring home. Lake rice was expensive, but not more valuable than Zayasu's place in her heart. She lowered her body and asked with a smile, "Zayai, do you like this rice?" Zayasu looked at her, then at her bowl of rice and nodded. "If you like it, should your aunt buy more of this rice?" She nodded again. That settled it, Sushu thought. Zayasu liked it, and she was willing to spend any amount of money for it. That night, after washing the dishes, she went inside to calculate the order volume and called the grain store owner while it was still not too late, ordering another 1,000 kilograms of lake rice. The other end was enjoying dinner with friends when they heard her order 1,000 kilograms of lake rice and exclaimed joyfully, "Zayasu, are you really ordering this much?" Sushu smiled. "Why aren't you selling?" "Selling, selling, selling," the voice hurriedly answered. "Oh my goodness, you're really helping me out a lot. I'll go and arrange the goods for you right now." "Great, if it's convenient for you. Deliver the goods within a week." "Sure thing." After hanging up, Sushu noted in her notebook, 1,000 kilograms of lake rice, main grain, 1,000 kilograms of polished rice, reserve grain. She had decided. Zayasu was growing up, and since lake rice was so good, it would be their staple food in the future, while the 1,000 kilograms of polished rice would serve as a decoy or be used in small portions for bartering. It might even come in handy during emergencies. Apocalypse Survival Diary was currently going live, and that night's update included a new twist in her story. The female protagonist overheard neighbors mentioning that prices were about to increase. Being young and naive, she followed the crowd and placed an online order for 60 kilograms of rice to keep at home, but accidentally added an extra zero. When 30 bags of rice were delivered, she regretted not noticing and canceling the order sooner. But when the apocalypse suddenly hit, her mistake turned into foresight, giving her a slight edge over others in those critical moments. She clicked upload, breathed out a sigh, and silently prayed that someone else might also be foolish. This one time slipped through the fingers like sand hurrying by. In the blink of an eye, amidst the hustle and bustle, a few days had passed unnoticed. These past days, she had been busy receiving various parcels. As each item arrived, she would organize it a second time and then store it in the space. She had kept the existence of the space a secret from Zayai, who was unaware. When Sushu stashed away the items, she either did it after Zayai had fallen asleep or out of the little one's sight. As a result, Zayai, who went in and out these past 2 days, constantly turned her beautiful wide eyes on her aunt, a 5-year-old furrowing her delicate brows in confusion now and then, looking adorably perplexed. Sushu could roughly guess what the child was thinking. Every day, so many parcels were delivered, but they all seemed to vanish after she slept. Where did the items go? It was either the sight of the child's rare helpless look that tickled Sushu, or that their interactions had finally grown less rigid. Sushu later even deliberately signed for deliveries while Zayai was playing games in the living room, and when the kid would take a stroll and come back, everything was gone. The amazed twirling of her wide, watery eyes as they scanned around the living room nearly had Sushu rolling with laughter. Sometimes, out of mischief, she wondered if, after a few more days, Zayai would break her silence and speak to her out of sheer bafflement. Unfortunately, she was too optimistic. Zaya, who had been turning things over in her mind for days without figuring out what was going on, subsequently developed a new skill. A 24/7 surveillance strategy. Clutching her dinosaur plushie, she followed Su Shu everywhere. When her aunt signed for parcels, Zai stood at the door with her dinosaur, gazing intently at the delivery guys, her commanding little eyes already baffling several couriers. When she unpacked items, Zai would sit on the living room sofa with her dinosaur, watching. Sleep. She wouldn't sleep. She'd rather nod off clutching her dinosaur than stop watching her aunt to see where all those items disappeared. After a few days of laughter, Su Shu couldn't bear to see Zai drowsily tagging along all day, so she carried her back to the room and cooed softly. "All right, no need to keep watching. I promise that when you wake up, those items will still be in the living room, okay?" The little cutie seemed to hum through her nose lightly, and with a turn, clutched her dinosaur and fell sound asleep. Su Shu sat on the edge of the bed, shaking her head helplessly. If they weren't to be put away, so be it. She had already finished stashing what needed to be hidden. The items she had just signed for in the living room were new clothes for Zaya. She flipped through her planner, nodding there were 49 days left. Meaning she could only enjoy this peaceful, secure, and abundant life for another 40-something days. After that, she didn't want to think about it. This morning she woke up to a light drizzle outside, which meant she didn't go anywhere today. She finished the update in the morning and wrote 2 extra chapters to backlog on the platform. Glancing at the calendar on the wall, she saw that in 10 days it would be Children's Day. It had been many years since she celebrated Children's Day. Looking back at Zaya's room, she thought that before the apocalypse, this would be the only Children's Day Zaya could celebrate. All these days she had been leading Zaya to gather materials, without truly letting her enjoy the colorful life of today, which made her feel a bit guilty. She bit off the cap of the red signing pen and drew a big circle on the calendar she leaned on. This Children's Day, she was going to make sure Zaya had a great time. Ding ding. A notification came through her work computer. She put down the pen to check. It was from her editor, Seal Jiang Dalu. "Su Shu, little buddy, come out here." Su Shu was confused, sitting in front of the computer. "Day by day, Su, boss." Seal Jiang Dalu, frantically pounding the floor, confessed to me, "Did you install a monitor around me?" "Day by day, Su." Innocent face, "No way." Seal Jiang Dalu, "Then why did you put my embarrassing moments in your new book, my image?" Su Shu was bewildered. 1 second later. "Day by day, Su, boss, did you buy too much rice?" Seal Jiang Dalu, throws a basket of bombs, blaming you. "Blaming you. Last time you said the food prices were going to rise, and I was tricked by you, my brain malfunctioned, I made a mistake while drunk, woo woo woo, I'm bankrupt." Day by day, Su, a row of clapping emojis. Seal Jiang Dalu, HMPH. Su Shu had a hata. Looking at the screen, she laughed until tears came out, typing excitedly while laughing. "Keep it, keep it, keep it. Can eat for a long time." Seal Jiang Dalu, "I curse your trickery." Day by day, Su, I'm relieved. After a few back and forths between the two, Su Shu logged off, closed the chat box, and her mood soared. That inexplicable feel of quietly helping someone felt so good. Suddenly, she clasped her hands together and prayed silently. "My little angels, may you also receive the signal I'm sending. Store more food and supplies. The apocalypse is really coming soon. I hope you can all be safe and hold on until a brand new life arrives." Maybe because she was in a good mood, even the drizzling rain outside didn't feel oppressive anymore. Instead, in this chilly weather, it seemed vaguely romantic. On a whim, Su Shu poured herself a glass of red wine, moved a chair, and leaned on the windowsill, sipping wine while watching the rain. From her perspective, there were no obstructions in front, giving her a broad view, immediately seeing cars moving back and forth distantly in the hazy mist. With each sip of wine and each glance at the scenery, the cool air brought by the rain hit her face like a spray, extremely comforting. In her previous life, before the apocalypse arrived, she had never enjoyed such pleasant moments. What was she busy with back then? Such beautiful scenery, such a wonderful life, all within her easy reach. Everything around was peaceful and quiet, bringing a sense of contentment to her heart. If only the apocalypse hadn't come, how great would that have been? She knew it was a luxury to think so, but at that moment she relished the present so much, devoid of worries about food and clothing, having family, beautiful scenery, and yes, fine wine too. Tomorrow, after she collected all the grains from the warehouse, she planned to make a trip to the countryside to collect some poultry eggs, and getting some fish fry would be even better. She just didn't know if she could transplant fruit trees into her space. In her previous life, fruits were a rare commodity. She had heard that later only the upper class could afford them. For ordinary people struggling at the bottom level like them, they were simply unobtainable, priceless indeed. She thought Zai really liked fruits. It would be nice if she could get a few varieties. The wonderful time passed slowly in the wine-red-colored rain. Zaya had a long afternoon nap, waking up to find everything still there. Her auntie hadn't lied to her, and her little face lit up with joy. The dinosaur in her arms seemed to smile too. That evening, Su Shu suddenly didn't feel like cooking, feeling unusually happy today. She changed her clothes, grabbed her purse and car keys, planning to take the little one to a leisurely shopping mall nearby to watch a movie. Recently, there was a Disney animated film being screened. It was still early, just enough time for them to grab something to eat, watch a movie, and then head home to sleep. Zaya, somewhat unsure what watching a movie entailed, cluelessly held Su Shu's finger and followed her out. The shopping mall, a place combining leisure, entertainment, and shopping, was only a short 10-minute drive from their home. No sooner had the car stopped and she not yet turned off the engine. Through the car window, she saw a familiar tall figure rushing towards the bustling main road. Tang Zelen, be careful. Su Shu, almost scared out of her wits by the scene before her eyes, hurriedly stumbled down from the car. Zaya, not knowing why, only saw her aunt run past the front of the car as if she were flying, shifting her small body from the left to the right side of the back seat to press against the car window. Through the car window, in the distance, she saw her aunt throwing herself onto a tall and big uncle. Huh! Just as Tang Zelen managed to steady himself, handing the little boy he had rescued into the anxious mother's arms, he sighed with relief. Thank goodness his reaction was quick. Otherwise, the child might have been hit by a car. The mother hugged her child tightly, ceaselessly thanking Tang Zelen with gratitude. It's nothing, just doing my duty. Keep an eye on your child. There are lots of cars on the road now. Don't let him get bumped or knocked. Thank you so much. The parent couldn't thank him enough. Having trained soldiers under a stern face all the time, Tang Zelen couldn't stand such a melodramatic scene, and after offering a few words of comfort, planned to leave. However, as he turned around, he was suddenly embraced full-on by a girl. Staggering back 2 steps under the force of inertia, supporting the weight of them both, Tang Zelen was a bit stunned. Because of the fright, Su Shu had forgotten the fact that they were now strangers to each other. Tang Zelen, are you all right? The man's name burst out so unexpectedly that his dark eyes flickered slightly. Seeing that he didn't respond, Su Shu thought he might have been injured somewhere. She started feeling up his arms and body, checking for injuries, which made Senior Colonel Tang's complexion look somewhat abnormal. Grabbing her wrist, if she continued touching him like this, what would it look like? After all, he was a man. Su Shu thought he just didn't want her to worry. He had been like this in her previous life, nearly losing his life for her yet brushing it off lightly so as not to worry her. When she later found out that incident had nearly taken his life, she didn't know how much she regretted it. Now, frantic with anxiety, she could hardly care about anything else. When he avoided her, she thought he was the same strong, uncomplaining Tang Zelen from her last life. Say something, where did you get hurt? Why are you always like this? Is there any pain? She was incoherent, her little face deathly pale. In this life, it was not easy to meet you again. How could I allow myself to miss out? With her shouting so fiercely, the parent holding the child also stopped, looking at Tang Zelen with concerned eyes, fearing he might have been injured while saving their child. Tang Zelen was surprised for a second, then quickly snapped out of it, first shaking his head to the parent, saying, "I'm really fine," and dismissed the mother and child who were slightly hesitant to leave. He realized that this girl who had suddenly appeared and called out his name correctly was the most difficult to deal with. The soldier king born from the special forces, Tang Zelen, took a good look at Su Shu and couldn't help but be amused. Wasn't this girl the one who got all turned around by his little girl in the supermarket the other day? He smiled a little, his teeth white, his smile broad and sunny, just like his natural easygoing and hearty disposition. "Miss, I'm really fine. There's no need to worry." "How can you be fine? That huge truck raced past," Su Shu cried out, her voice trembling. Tang Zelen's dark pupils shimmered. The girl's eyes were clear and transparent, filled with genuine concern. Such intense feelings rushed towards him, so full of worry for him, that somehow he found himself unable to voice the teased comment that was on the tip of his tongue. The perennially unflowered iron tree in his heart suddenly throbbed quietly within his chest. Caught off guard, Su Shu went to check on him again, scaring Tang Zelen into quickly stepping back and widening the distance between their hands. "Miss, I'm truly fine. I come from a military background, so handling a little thing like that just now is easy for me." Tang Zelen had no choice but to explain his identity. Su Shu didn't buy his explanation. In her previous life, he always used that excuse to fool her around, claiming that as a soldier, such trivial matters were not a challenge for him. She had been foolish back then, taking his word for it every time, holding him in her eyes as an invincible godlike figure. But what happened in the end? In the end, he, the mighty one, had fallen right before her very eyes lifelessly. Protecting his country and defending his homeland was his dream, and she didn't stand in his way. But in this lifetime, she never wanted to go through the ordeal of carrying his ashes under the 5-starred red flag again. While under countless salutes of respect, she didn't even have the courage to quietly ask in her heart whether he ever liked her or not. He once said that the best ending for him was to serve his country with loyalty and sacrifice his life for his people. He did leave this world draped in the 5-starred red flag, obtaining the martyrdom he sought. But she just couldn't accept it. No matter how noble the honor was, she was just an ordinary person, and no glittering honor could compare to having him alive. She just wanted him to be alive, as before, with hardships and difficulties never able to extinguish his passionate blood and hearty smile. Su Shu's eyes were naturally beautiful, and at that moment they shimmered with emotion, looking at him with feelings so intense they seemed impossible to clear away, as if a massive whirlpool was sucking Tang Zelen's heart into it. The emotions in the depth of her eyes even affected him. When he realized what was happening, Tang Zelen broke out in a cold sweat, taking an involuntary step back. He thought to himself, this girl is too formidable. He, a tough guy hardened by countless trials and never yielding, nearly stumbled under the gaze of this young girl. If his comrades knew about this, they would surely tease him endlessly. A senior colonel, a tough-as-nails eagle of the skis, nearly taken down by a little girl. Just thinking about it made his face burn with embarrassment. "Miss, I'm really fine, you don't have to worry," he said affirmatively again. "Miss," Didn't he used to call her Shushu? Suddenly, her eyes widened, and she stared blankly at Tang Zelen. Tang Zelen also slightly raised his brows, not understanding why, thinking to himself that her expression was unexpectedly amusing. Damn it! Upon realizing her overreaction, Su Shu suddenly became aware that she and he had not yet met. My goodness! How embarrassing! Her sparkling eyes suddenly blinked a few times. Tang Zelen's brows arched even higher. Huh, what does that mean? Su Shu stood rigid before him, and after 3 seconds, she suddenly turned around and walked away quickly, feigning recognition of the wrong person, her lips pressed tightly together, without uttering a sound. After a few steps, she broke into a run. Left standing there, quite bamboozled, the senior colonel. What just happened? He was a bit distressed. Why did this home leave feel like every kind of pressure was just so immense? Retrieving the car keys, picking up Zaya, closing the car door, and ignoring Tang Zelen, who was looking at her from the roadside, Su Shu quickly dashed into the shopping mall with her niece in tow. It wasn't until she passed through the revolving door and came inside that she finally stood still, surrounded by the shopping crowd. Only then did she let out a long sigh of relief. Looking like this, Tang Zelen would definitely think she had a mental problem. Inside, she felt both relieved and frustrated. After finally encountering him again, she had wanted to get to know him properly. But why was it that every time she was in front of him, she managed to make a fool of herself, either acting dumb or like a lunatic? After entering the mall, Zaya had been set down on the floor. She stood next to Su Shu's legs, looking up at her aunt. No one noticed the little one give a helpless shake of her head and sigh lightly, as if resigned. Outside the mall, Tang Zelen had watched her run into the mall carrying the child as if she were being chased by wolves. It amused him greatly. She really was an interesting girl. Feeling in a better mood, he took a lighter out of his pocket, lit the cigarette between his fingers, and drew on it with a smile on his lips. Why couldn't the match his grandfather arranged for him be as interesting as the young mother he had just encountered, who brought such amusement every time they met? Across the bustling road lay a black luxury car that had been parked there for some time. In the driver's seat, there was a man with a cigarette between his fingers, the car filled with swirling smoke. His gaze crossed the busy road to a figure before the mall, his eyes deep and thoughtful. After watching the movie and heading home, stars were already dotting the sky above. Su Shu, carrying Zai, followed the crowd out of the mall. By chance, they passed a cake shop with a rich, tantalizing aroma. Standing in front of the display, they ended up buying 7 or 8 different flavors of cake. By the time they got home, the car was filled with the sweet scent of cakes. Occasionally hitting a red light, she turned around to see Zaira's eyes glued to the cakes, unable to look away, and she smiled knowingly. In the car, she picked out a new song she recently liked. Under the glow of the streetlights, she drove home at a steady pace. The melodious music was surrounding her, and holding the steering wheel with rhythm, she lightly tapped her fingers to the beat. Life after rebirth had not changed significantly overall, but it was already out of control in its small ways. She could feel it in her heart, shifting from anxiety to acceptance. Facing difficulties wasn't scary, she thought. This time, no matter what challenges fate threw at her, she would rise to the occasion. After all, she had the experience now. Just thinking about seeing Tang Zelen today made her lips curl up involuntarily. He was still the same, shining like the sun wherever he appeared, exuding warmth and a special sense of security. Yes, there was also his habit of meddling and serving the people as a soldier, just as he had in the past life. Initially, when they first met, she was somewhat afraid of him. She always thought that a man with such sharp eyes and a smile that seemed to carry a cold, speculative scrutiny was intimidating. After getting to know him more, It turned out that no matter how she struggled, she could never turn things around in the palm of his hand. Somehow, he managed to make the area within 100 meters of her off-limits to others. The only person who had the pass, token to come and go as he pleased, was him. An enigmatic man from head to toe, he sparked confusion and curiosity. Not sure if it was the recollection of the scant happiness from her past life, Su Shu drove the whole way in a good mood. That man, he could deal with anyone, from white-haired grandmothers in their 70s or 80s to babbling toddlers, always seeming to face no difficulty he couldn't overcome with a smile. To outsiders, he might have seemed very approachable. Yet, during training, the soldiers under his command complained endlessly every day, unreservedly dubbing him Iron-Faced Yama and grumbling about him behind his back following each session. Such a contradictory personality perfectly, unpredictably switched within one person, making her afraid of Tang Zelen back then. It always felt like a wolf draped in sheep's skin, patrolling his territory with ease, was dangerous no matter how you looked at it. Plus, she had asked him why he loved being a soldier, and his answer was particularly thought-provoking. With his hands in his pockets, he chuckled, "Because I can fight with people in a legitimate way." Su Shu asked again, "Just for that reason?" Let me think about it. I can also pull a bunch of people together for a group fight every so often." Su Shu. She always thought he was an untamed eagle. Later, she realized that even if he was an eagle, he was not haughty and untamed. Every time he soared in the sky, it was to better protect the land and people he dearly loved. All his jokes were said with utter seriousness. But the truly serious words were said in jest. Like before he was deployed, he said, "Hey, protecting the country is not some lofty dream of mine. I'll just take a quick stroll and be back to take you hunting." She really believed it. She thought that in the apocalypse, with human hearts shattered and morality crumbled, how many could remain as innocent as a child, maintaining their original intentions? Even she was no longer that girl who would soften at the sight of someone else's tears. Yet the man who seemed like a millennia-old fox, always getting the better end of the deal in front of her every day, was the very same person who, on the true battlefield, did not hesitate to shed his blood on the land he saw as his faith. She was left alone, standing in place, waiting for someone who would never come back to smile at her again. When he left, he kissed her for the first time, his lips touching hers so lightly that even that was enough to make her heart flutter. The crisis at the front line haunted her already fragile nerves daily, with reports of dead soldiers and civilians arriving every day. The list of military martyrdom filled her with dread, and she had to muster her greatest courage to look at it. Only finding his name absent could she breathe a sigh of relief. He was still alive. Nothing was more important than that. She kept waiting for him to come back, wanting to ask him what that kiss meant before he left. But all she received were his ashes, sacrificed without even a last word. He had finally fulfilled his lifelong wish to protect his country with honor, fighting until the last drop of his blood was spilt. He had finally become the truly free eagle, soaring in the azure sky he had longed for. And her. How could he bear to leave her on this ravaged land? She didn't know if he thought of her before his sacrifice, or if he considered how she would be without him. During those days of despair, she cried herself to sleep every night. When loneliness overwhelmed her in the dead of night, she'd think to just die and follow him. But come dawn, she'd scold herself for betraying his years of dedication to her. She was a life he had snatched back from King Yama, bite by bite, and she didn't even have the right to die. If she went to see him without a fight, she knew he'd give her a mouthful. She was sure of it. She had survived the toughest days. How could she lack spirit on this very land he had fought for so fiercely, laying down his life in the process? Waking up one night, she gathered her spirits and forced herself to live, pouring both her and his passion for life into the reconstruction work of the new city. When she finally received the Medal of Honor from the mayor, she wished he could stand beside her, proud of her. Looking at the other honored citizens embracing their loved ones happily, she could only quietly step back in envy and bring a bouquet of paper flowers to his grave. She wanted to tell him that she hadn't let him down, that he had given his life for the country and the people, and although she couldn't do the same, she could still contribute her modest efforts to the country he loved. But what she wanted most was still him. Tears unknowingly trailed down her cheeks. Suddenly, a small hand reached out, offering her a tissue. Su Shu came to her senses, hesitated before accepting the tissue and wiping her face casually. She smiled at Zai, turned off the engine and took Zai home. As the elevator numbers climbed, Su Shu suddenly laughed in the confined space. In her past life, he had kept her reeling with his antics. This time, she was the gold-gleaming, reborn individual. Let's see how he'd fool her now. His old tricks were useless against her. She lifted the corners of her lips, her eyes brimming with tears and laughter. Provincial Military Region Compound. A black jeep swaggered in, had gone some distance about to take a turn when someone on the roadside suddenly waved at the person in the driver's seat to greet him. "Boss, look over here." Tang Zelen stepped on the brakes, rolled down the window, pushed his sunglasses down with a finger revealing a pair of sparkling eyes, his gaze carrying a hint of playful tease. "Well, well, isn't this the little fatty who's said to have charmed a princess in an African tribal village? How come the fierce African sun turned you into little second black?" The person on the roadside took several large strides over in excitement, clinging to the car door, revealing a wide set of pearly whites as he laughed, a smile as radiant as flowers. "Boss, boss, I've missed you to death. Did you miss me?" Tang Zelen gave a devilish smile and casually pointed to the passenger seat. "Get in." "You bet." Comrade Little Fatty made his way around the front of the car, opened the door, and upon getting in, sought to give Tang Zelen a hearty, international-style embrace, but was pushed away with a hefty slap to the face. "Save me that worthless crap." "Boss, how come the moment I come back after 3 years, I start missing you scolding me?" Glancing at him, Tang Zelen retorted with a smile and curse. "Why's your skin itching for a scolding? Nobody but your dear old dad to scold you, so you're actually sitting here waiting to catch it." Comrade Little Fatty chuckled. "Just got back from my old man's tirade at your dad's place, got myself thoroughly chewed out the moment I arrived. Can't afford to provoke Mount Tai, can I? But I can hide. Heard the boss made some achievements again." "Crap," Tang Zelen suddenly cursed. "Little Fatty, what's up? Did you just say Uncle Yuan has left from my place?" Tang Zelen stared pointedly at him. Yes, yes." Comrade Yuan Zio aka Little Fatty was somewhat perplexed. "Then Uncle Yuan definitely went to rat me out," Zelen surmised. "Yuan Zio, when did you get back? How come I didn't see you the day before yesterday?" "Last night, man, I came looking for you. Uncle Tang said you were busy these days, told me not to bother you, almost died of boredom all night." He paused, then asked, "Boss, what's been keeping you so busy? Why couldn't I reach you on the phone?" Zelen replied, "What do you mean couldn't reach me? My phone was confiscated by old man Tang. Here, put your number in." Saying so, he tossed a new phone to Yuan Zio. Yuan Zio fiddled with the phone joyfully for a while. "True to form, my boss. Always has a countermeasure for every policy, I knew it. How could you suddenly start listening to the old men?" Using Zelen's phone, he dialed his own number to confirm it, then redialed with his phone to make sure it was saved. "That's my new number," Yuan Zio said. As Zelen drove, he glanced at him. "Back for good?" "Yeah, I'm back for good. My old man's health isn't good. If I didn't return, he would probably cry, make a scene, then threaten to hang himself. Played around enough outside, time to return anyway, he admitted. Zelen acknowledged with an MHM. Their car halted not far from a building, and after the engine was cut, neither immediately got out of the car. Yuan Zio produced a pack of cigarettes, offering one to Zelen, who took one. Yuan Zio lit it up promptly, and the two sat in the car chatting. My old man's using the military as leverage and is on my case about getting married. Your dad and my uncle Yuan are providing technical advice from the sidelines. You came back just in time. Cover for me these next few days. I've got things to do. What? Yuan Zio was flabbergasted for a moment, nearly burning himself with the cigarette. Flicking off the cigarette ash and querying, "Boss, may I ask, what do you mean by technical advice?" Zelen blew out a puff of smoke, casting him a cold glance, and snorted, "Like providing candidates, for instance." Yuan Zio's hands quivered, his heart skipped a beat. What kind of candidates could his dad supply? Tentatively probing, "So, boss, what's your take?" Zelen flicked the ash off outside the car window and replied nonchalantly, "It's all right." "You didn't take to any of them. That didn't make sense." "It's they who didn't take to me," he said with another drag, unaffected. "That's impossible. If you were really trying, from the 30-year-old veterans down to the teethless toddlers, who wouldn't fall under your dashing military pants, it must be that you weren't serious," Yuan Zio asserted confidently. "Quit mocking my uniform," Zelen cursed. Yes, yes, yes. It's their loss not recognizing a gem," Yuan Zio immediately corrected. "But seriously, the people your dad and mine introduced, they can't be that bad, right? Not a single one caught your interest." Zelen exhaled smoke, and as Yuan Zio questioned him, for some reason, a vivacious and pretty little face suddenly barged into his mind. After parting with his good friend, Tang Zelen climbed the stairs with his car keys in hand. Upon opening the door, he happened to encounter his father's subordinate coming out with a briefcase, smiling and greeting him. "It's noon. Won't you stay for lunch?" Chen Cheng did not expect that upon opening the door, he would encounter the young group captain of the Tang family, whose reputation preceded him. Startled for a second, he smiled and extended his hand. "Chen Cheng, just transferred to the staff office." "Tang Zelen," he shook hands openly, "how's the chief's mood today?" Chen Cheng replied, "Seems not too good." Tang Zelen nodded in understanding. "Need a ride?" "No need, I drove," he said, pointing to a military vehicle beside him. "Then take care, I won't see you out." After exchanging greetings, Tang Zelen went inside, and as Chen Cheng descended the steps and walked a few paces, he suddenly stopped, turned back to glance at the spot where Tang Zelen had disappeared, and couldn't help but chuckle. Two strangers who had never seen each other before managed to chat so much upon their first meeting. This illustrious military scion wasn't as unyielding and aloof as the rumors suggested. However, his demeanor was remarkable, commanding an innate control over everything around him. In just a brief encounter, he had dealt with his new subordinate from the B military region's father so comfortably, not causing any awkwardness. Definitely not an ordinary man. Chen Cheng gradually developed a rather good impression of Group Captain Tang, who was said to always be on duty at the Border Defense Forces in Sea City. On his way here, the slight doubts about his future unknowingly faded somewhat due to this little interlude. He couldn't quite make sense of it yet, but his mood had certainly brightened. As soon as he entered the house, Tang Zelen smelled the aroma of top-grade Dahengpao tea. It seemed his old man was somewhat irritable. Every time his mood deteriorated, he would calm his thoughts with Dahengpao tea. "Dad." A curt, cold grunt. Tang Zelen pocketed his keys, changed into a pair of slippers, and walked over to the sofa next to his father, Tang Husheng, and sat down. "The mood's quite good, eh? The tea's nice. I could smell its fragrance the moment I entered." Tang Husheng, now in his 50s, had a stalwart appearance and a resolute face. Without speaking a word, his stern look was commanding. Even though time had marked him with age, you could still see the handsome and valiant demeanor from his youth. Father and son sitting together, they resembled each other by about 70 to 80%. The remaining 20 to 30% of Zelen was inherited from his late mother, who hailed from a scholarly family, bringing a refined and genteel air to his presence. Therefore, Tang Husheng was extremely proud to have such an outstanding son in his life. But a son grown can't be kept by his father's side. He'd carried a gun and artillery for the country all his life, his body riddled with bullet holes over the years. Having reached middle age with only 2 bachelors in the family, his son continued in his footsteps, always heading into danger. At his age, all the other old men in the compound had little grandchildren hopping around and calling them grandpa. Except him. He spent every day with his heart in his throat, worrying about his son. He wanted him to take a break, come home, arrange a proper marriage, find a wife to settle down with and have children. Why was that so difficult? Old Yuan said he had introduced him to more than a dozen suitable girls. Upon inquiry, not a single one was willing. On the rare occasion one agreed to give it a try, they couldn't even find where he was. Tang Husheng slammed his teacup onto the table with a thud and said in a deep voice, "Speak." Tang Zelen picked up 2 peanuts and looked up, puzzled. "Speak about what? What kind of girl do you want? Age, looks, figure, personality, hobbies, family background, detail everything. I don't care about whether it's a suitable match anymore. Before you go back to the troops, you must find me a daughter-in-law. I know what you want to do when you go back, lead the team into the mountains for training, right? Fine, I am not unreasonable. Want to lead the team? Fine, but once a daughter-in-law comes through the door, you can roll back to the mountains. Without a daughter-in-law, you're going to stay and continue these blind dates." Tang Zelen leaned forward, grabbing his dear father's teapot, and poured himself a cup of tea, placing it in front of him. "Your son is too ordinary, they don't fancy me." Tang Dad glared furiously. "Is it they who don't fancy you, or you who don't fancy them? You think I don't know?" "It's them, they don't fancy me," Tang Zelen affirmed seriously. "Bullshit." If Tang Husheng had a gun in his hand right now, he really wanted to riddle his son with bullets. Ever since he was young, Zelen was sly, stubborn, and deceitful. Didn't he know him? He shifted towards his son and asked, "What about old Zhang's daughter?" "I have inquired. That girl is a bright student who returned from abroad with a nice personality too. Didn't you check her out? No good." Tang Zelen shook his head. "She's too outstanding. She won't be interested in someone who plays with guns all day." Tang Husheng became so angry he was fuming and slapped the table twice. "This one is no good, that one's no good. What kind of woman can you fancy? What is it? You plan to stick with the bachelors for life, is that it? Look at your comrades in arms from the same period. Those who should settle down have done so. How come you can't? Do they have an extra head or an extra leg? I don't care, but you must get married this year. I've already spoken to your superior. And if you don't submit a marriage report when you return, don't even think about entering the mountains." Seeing his son trying to speak, he cut him off. "Don't bother sweet-talking me. This matter is already set in stone. If you have time to persuade me, go out and arrange some blind dates yourself." Zelen said helplessly, "With such short notice, where am I going to find a wife? Why don't you go find a wife first, see how hard it is?" "I'll kill you, that's what I'll do." Tang the elder threw his fists in frustration. After drinking a cup of tea to moisten his throat, Zelen stood up. "I'm busy these next few days, so let's cancel the blind dates for now. If you really insist on me going on blind dates, fine. You and Uncle Yuan arrange someone for the day after tomorrow, after I return from the village visit, then I'll attend." Tang Husheng scolded, "Running off again. Are vacations for you to run wild or for you to come back and find a wife? You dare to just go through the motions with me, give it a try, I'll break your legs. I know, okay, I'll go on the blind dates happy now. But not these few days. I need to take a trip to the countryside. We'll talk when I get back. Go to the countryside. Tang Husheng became suspicious. What are you going down there for? Zelen casually grabbed some peanuts, eating them as he walked upstairs, to visit a comrade's grave. Old man Tang sat on the sofa silently, finally letting out a sigh. Saying he was going to visit a comrade probably meant taking care of the comrade's family. Then come back early. Uncle Yuan has gone out on a limb contacting these girls' families for you. Don't drag it out. Got it, Zelen responded nonchalantly. He went upstairs to pack a couple of changes of casual wear and loaded some gifts in the car from home. When he saw his old cell phone on the coffee table as he was leaving, he couldn't help but smile. The old man was stubborn, but when it came down to important matters, he was quite enlightened. Zelen picked up the cell phone, got into his car and drove off. Passing by the gate of the compound, he saw a security guard on duty, and with a cheerful smile, returned the military salute before driving away. Leaving now, he would arrive at Peng village just as it was getting dark. Halfway through the drive, something crossed his mind, and he dialed a number. Yuan Zio, I'm heading to Peng village, want to come see. On the other end, Yuan Zio, who had been trying to figure out how to escape a scolding from his own father, heard the offer and leapt with joy, eagerly responding, let's go. Big bro, wait for me. As Zelen started to hear the sounds of his brother arguing with their father through the phone, he smiled, hung up, and tossed the phone onto the dashboard, continuing to drive. It didn't take 20 minutes for Yuan Zio to catch up. He threw his car to the side of the road and jumped into Zelen's car, overjoyed. The two men chatted as they drove onto the highway, leaving the city behind, heading in the direction of Peng village. Su Shu closed her laptop after saving the last chapter to the backend and stood up, stretching her back. Phew, she had finally saved the updates for the next 4 days. Now she wouldn't have to worry about anything else during her trip to the countryside. In the past 2 days, she had stored 2,000 kilograms of rice in her space. However, due to being in a rush, she hadn't yet had the chance to properly organize it. After having dinner and putting Zai to sleep, she planned to enter her space to take a good look around to see just how large an area there was and what items could be placed inside. This would make her feel more prepared for her trip to the countryside the next day. The grain store owner was very pleased to trade with her, seeing that as soon as the goods arrived, she paid the entire remaining balance without any discrepancy. The owner thought Su Shu was a good girl. While his workers were unloading the goods, the store owner chatted with Su Shu on the side. During their conversation, when he learned that Su Shu wanted to purchase some home-raised poultry and seeds from the countryside, he immediately recommended his wife's hometown, Peng village. According to him, since she liked Lake Rice, she might as well visit its place of origin. The villagers would certainly have seeds saved for next year's planting, and she was welcome to ask around to see if she could collect some from them. He couldn't say much about the quantity, but buying a little bit here and there was possible. The store owner was attentive and noticed that Su Shu occasionally took out a notebook from her bag to jot down a few notes and crossed off items as she confirmed the goods. Thinking that the girl was very thorough in her dealings, he asked her a few more questions after completing the transaction. The page didn't have much written on it, just a few agricultural and sideline products, with a small variety. Su Shu didn't mind him seeing it and showed it to him. Seeing items like eggs from chickens, ducks, and geese on her list, he mentioned that although rural areas didn't raise as many as in the past, they definitely weren't lacking in those, especially in his wife's hometown of Peng village. Located in a mountain valley with difficult access, surrounded by water, there were quite a few of these poultry farms. If he could help the village increase its income, wouldn't that be even better? Thinking this, the store owner cautiously asked Su Shu, since a girl buying such a large amount of goods must have some business in mind, right? Su Shu knew they would eventually ask about her large purchases, so she gave the excuse she had thought of beforehand. She said, "It's not for me. I'm mainly helping out a friend who does business in the South. You know how northern rice has always been tasty, right? So my friend wants to try bringing some from here and see how it sells down there. If it goes well, he'll consider a long-term venture. If not, he can handle a few tons of rice without losing much. As for the other things, those are available everywhere. I just want to buy some to give away as gifts." Su Shu's explanation was perfectly reasonable, and the store owner understood her point. Hearing that her friend was also considering long-term development made him even more enthusiastic. "If the business takes off over there, you guys must look after my small enterprise," he said with hope in his voice, clearly wishing for Su Shu and her friend to become regular Lake Rice customers. Su Shu just smiled and said nothing more. Perhaps it was this brief casual talk that made the store owner think of maintaining a long-term relationship, prompting him to recommend the products of Peng Village to Su Shu. The feng shui is great there, and the mountains offer a lot. Although some mountain products are rare nowadays, there's still a decent variety in season, he explained. If you think it's worthwhile and are willing to pay a fair price, people in Peng Village will be eager to go into the mountains to gather for you. You know how delicious the fruit in the market is, right? The mountain ones are no worse and are naturally pure. And as for the poultry, just go check it out. You absolutely won't make the trip in vain. Recalling the store owner's words while drinking water in front of the fridge, Su Shu thought that since she needed to collect some things from the countryside anyway, it didn't matter where she went. So she might as well visit Peng Village, the place where Lake Rice originated. And maybe she could also check out the legendary mountain spring water struck by lightning. After dinner, she gave Zai a fragrant bath, dried her off, and then tucked her into bed. Perhaps exhausted from playing all day, Zai fell asleep shortly after hitting the bed. Su Shu tiptoed to turn off the light and close the door before returning to her own room, planning to check the space inside the ink jade ring. The ring had long been linked to her consciousness, which was the only reason it had reincarnated with her. However, Su Shu had thought hard but couldn't remember when this connection was established. Thinking too much gave her a headache, so she set it aside, knowing that the space inside the ink jade ring was hers to use was enough. The last time she entered, she only took a rough look. When collecting goods, she only focused on storing the food in the warehouse she had previously selected, without giving much thought to anything else. Upon entering, she discovered that the sacks of rice and flour she had collected were neatly and orderly arranged layer by layer in the warehouse. Su Shu stood at the doorway of the warehouse, amazed, and what surprised her even more was another feature. There was a crossroad inside the doorway, just wide enough for one person to pass, seemingly designed to facilitate the movement of goods. The crossroads were paved with rectangular stone bricks. Whether it was an illusion or not, she always felt that the warehouse seemed a bit larger than before. After checking the stocks of rice and flour, Su Shu stepped out of the warehouse and stood in the yard, feeling very secure as she looked at the small courtyard. With this space, if she and Zai ever faced insurmountable difficulties, they could hide here for temporary safety. However, hiding from the world was not a solution. The sudden crisis of the apocalypse would one day pass. She had never considered running away from what she needed to face. It took 2 to 3 hours to organize everything she had previously brought in. Fortunately, she examined the main living quarter and 2 side rooms but found no modern items, suggesting the space also had been around for some time. The master bedroom had 2 brocade quilts, the surfaces exquisitely embroidered, so fine that even someone like her, who knew little about such things, could tell they were of high quality. Touching them, she felt they were indeed fine items. After a full circle, Su Shu felt that the previous owner of this space must have been someone indifferent to fame and wealth, someone whose temperament persisted modesty, yet elegantly from inside and out. It was clear from the surroundings that the owner had a fondness for nature and revered the natural way of being. Regardless, she had looked everywhere and found no rare treasures of any kind. In a corner of the yard was a well. Feeling tired, she drew some cool well water and sat at the stone table in the yard to drink and rest. The nature inside the space seemed to operate as its own ecosystem, no different from the outside. There were breezes and sunshine. However, Su Shu noticed something different still. Last time she entered, the sky was gray and murky, and the water in the pond beside the house was as still as dead water without a ripple. But this time, for some reason, she found the sky seemed much brighter than before, and the color was bluer. Occasionally, when the wind blew, it stirred up ripples on the surface of the pond beside the house. Everything around seemed to have gained a bit of vitality. Su Shu drank some water and thought, could it be because she was moving things into the space, or because she started using the space more frequently? For the moment, she couldn't pinpoint what exactly caused the space to burst with life. However, she could think of those two reasons. If that was the case, she planned to continue adding things inside and would frequently use it. If indeed that was the reason, then she was truly looking forward to seeing what this small world would eventually become. She wondered what it would slowly turn into in the future. After resting in the space for a while, Su Shu decided to go out. But as soon as she stepped out, her soul almost flew out of her body in fright. At the door, the dinosaur toy was squatting on the floor with an apple in its embrace, like a door deity, staring at her. Patting her chest to calm her racing heart, she looked around and did not find Zai's figure, but if it wasn't Zai, how did the dinosaur toy get here? She bent down to pick up the apple and touched it. It was washed. Was it Zai who washed it? Hadn't she gone to sleep? Su Shu's brain went blank for a moment as if she suddenly realized something. After she went into the space, Zai couldn't have woken up and come looking for her, could she? If the apple was from Zai, what would she think finding no auntie in the bedroom? For a moment, Su Shu stood there, looking at the apple in her hand, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. Crunch, she took a bite of the apple. This little girl of hers, silent all day, who knows what goes on inside that little head of hers. It seems she still hasn't let go of the matters that she can't understand. Now, what must she be thinking when she wakes up to find her auntie not in the house? However, Su Shu soon felt puzzled again. Since Zai knew she wasn't in the room, how did Zai decide to leave the apple here? Could she have the ability to foresee events? Thinking hard but unable to figure it out, Su Shu picked up the dinosaur toy from the floor, bit into the apple, and left through the door. After all the fuss, she felt a little peckish and wanted to find something to eat for a midnight snack. But right in front of the bedroom, a pair of big black eyes were staring straight at her from the couch. Biting into the apple, Su Shu froze at the doorway, still holding the dinosaur toy. Su Shu, has this child been waiting here the whole time? Zai wrapped her arms around her chest, her delicate little eyebrows suddenly raised. Her dark, shiny eyes twinkled as if she had found a breakthrough in a problem that had puzzled her for a long time. Suddenly, she flipped over, slid off the couch, and ran toward Su Shu, tiptoeing to reach for the little friend in Su Shu's hand. Su Shu came back to her senses and quickly returned the dinosaur toy to her, feeling slightly embarrassed. Well, Zai took back the dinosaur toy without any reaction and went around Su Shu to take a look into her bedroom, though it was unclear what she was looking for. Then she turned and went back to her own room. Su Shu wanted to go over and explain, although she didn't know exactly what to explain. The bedroom door slammed, shut right in front of her nose. Standing outside the door, Su Shu touched her nose. Well, it seemed her status had plummeted. almost as much as Zai's snack stash. Even a fool could understand Zai's series of actions. Su Shu sat on the couch, looking at Zai's tightly closed door. When she went into the space, Zai must have woken up and not found her, then began to doubt. The little girl was just as she expected, not at all dumb, not to mention her careful observance. Just the other day, the child started to puzzle over something, her perseverance showing as she followed alongside her every day with the determination to understand, no matter how sleepy or tired. Su Shu had to admire that. The little girl was only 5 years old. It seemed the doubts of the past few days, and today's apple might all be the reasons this little girl wanted to figure things out. Su Shu had never taken care of children before, so she didn't know how much comprehension a 5-year-old girl could have about the events happening around her. But when she came out, there was Zai, sitting at the couch, watching and waiting the whole time. What was she waiting for? Was she waiting for her to come out? Su Shu thought. Could it be that this little girl wanted to see if she would come out of the seemingly empty bedroom? If she came back from outside the front door, that would be normal, perhaps she had gone out. But if she came out from the bedroom, that would mean the auntie was a ghost. Could a 5-year-old child consider such complex causes and effects with such a high level of intelligence? Su Shu looked toward Zai's room, suddenly feeling a little uneasy. Zai was young. How would a child interpret these sudden disappearances and appearances? Good heavens! She, a grown person who had faced all kinds of big storms, had been reborn and had inadvertently stumbled in front of a little tot. Such a careless mistake. The next day, dawn was just breaking. Su Shu got up early to cook, and to her surprise, Zai also rose very early. The little one rubbed her eyes, pushed open the door, and upon seeing Su Shu, paused for 2 seconds, seemingly recalling the events of the previous night. She studied Su Shu intently for a while, her little eyes whirring around twice before she turned to go to the bathroom to wash her face. Su Shu followed her, but brought up neither the previous day's matters nor any explanations. She simply relayed the day's agenda. She secretly watched Zai's expression and noticed that when she mentioned leaving the city for the countryside, Zai's eyes suddenly sparkled. The car traveled from the city center to the highway entrance, and by the time it was daybreak, just before entering the highway, she called the grain store owner to confirm Peng Village's location once more before departing from City C toward Peng Village. Zaya, dressed in a simple and cute pair of overalls with her hair in 2 braids, sat quietly in the back seat, gazing out at the scenery through the window, the clear black of her pupils reflecting the outside view. Yuanteng Group's City C headquarters. In front of the bright and clean floor-to-ceiling windows, a pair of deep black eyes looked out faintly, overlooking the city from above, as all that was familiar came back into his view. Shen Han stood for a long time, as if immersed in memories unique to him, to the extent that the secretary who came to deliver documents in the midst of it didn't dare disturb him, quietly placing the documents down before quickly leaving. After a while, the man frowned. He still couldn't understand how someone he knew so well could have changed so much, so suddenly. Turning around, a black and solemn desk lay before him, on which rested a manila envelope. He had already reviewed its contents, the information he had someone gather about Su Shu. Everything about her recent life was detailed therein. He had gone through it, and if he hadn't seen Su Shu with his own eyes, hadn't personally encountered the person she had become, he would believe his Su Shu hadn't changed at all. The woman in the documents was still the girl from his memories, but the real her felt strangely distant to him. Damn this feeling. Shen Han's expression darkened. Seeing the documents on the desk, a flash of impatience crossed his eyes. The people below were becoming increasingly careless in their work, not only failing to uncover anything useful about Su Shu, but also unable to determine if there were any men with a special relationship within her life sphere. Feeling gloomy, he casually lit a cigarette. Who was that man across from the mall that day? From his angle, he could clearly see the look on her face as she threw herself at that man. It was only at times like this that Shen Han hated his excellent vision. If it weren't for that, he wouldn't have seen the look Su Shu gave that man. Having known Su Shu for so many years, he was all too familiar with her. After she lost her parents in her teenage years, she rarely opened her heart to others, and he had once wondered what about him made her fall for him at first sight. So while others might not understand, he could see what was in her eyes. It was an incredibly strong emotion, and he felt that in facing that man, Su Shu's reactions were even more excited and dependent than when she faced him. Dependent. Shen Han frowned, wondering why that word came to his mind, irritating him. The burning ember of the cigarette wasn't far from the end, and after extinguishing the cigarette in his hand, Shen Han processed the documents that needed his signature with efficiency, grabbed his coat from the hanger, and left the office. When something started to spiral out of control, he preferred to take active measures rather than wait passively, to keep the potential chaos firmly within his grasp. Peng Village, located in a small village under the countryside of the neighboring province, is quite far from City C, Province B, with a distant view from north to south. The village, nestled among mountains, naturally enjoys a favored environment. Unfortunately, the mountain roads developed in the early years were rugged and muddy, and quite difficult to traverse. The people of the village, accustomed to relying on the mountains for generations, hadn't given it much thought. During wartime, the challenging mountain paths even made it an ideal place to hide from the world. However, in peacetime, especially after the outside world had undergone earth-shattering changes, the backwardness of the village became quite evident. People who left the village and returned later naturally brought about many changes, with education being the forefront issue. Because of education, the people of Peng Village began to send their children to study and see the world, and because of education, they started to pool funds for road construction. After struggling for a few years, the village finally took its first step, establishing frequent contact with the town above. The public authorities of the town were also happy to help with development. In recent years, people from Peng Village began to move to the town and even to the county in a steady stream. Although the number was not large, the change was visible. Changes in life always happen quietly, but behind the vigorous development, several elderly villagers in Peng Village, who often came out to chat leisurely after dinner, appeared increasingly worried. The young people in the village didn't understand these concerns. Ever since a clear spring emerged from the back mountain, they felt that there had been many changes in the village. Of course, they believed these changes were positive, especially recently when they heard that this year's lake rice from Peng Village not only sold its first batch, but also fetched a good price. Sister Hongmei, who had married out of the village, mentioned that the market might gradually open up even more in the future. The development of Peng Village is promising, as are its young people. They couldn't quite grasp why the elders at home had been gathering together lately, looking so deeply concerned. Wasn't the village finding a way to prosperity a great thing? With money, they too could live as well as those in the city in the future. Village Chief Peng Chunlai had just seen off highly respected Elder Peng, sighed at the doorstep, and turned to go back inside. His wife Feng Hua, noticing him shaking his head and sighing as he entered, brought over pancakes, dinner, and a small pot of wine to the table. "Why the sigh? Has the elder gone home?" "He's gone. You know, the elder is stubborn. He could have stayed for dinner, it wouldn't have hurt anyone. I had already prepared the food, but he insisted on going back to eat cold leftovers," said Feng Hua, not too pleased as she put down the bowls and chopsticks on the Kang table. Peng Chunlai frowned. All right, enough talk. What kind of person is the elder? Is this your first day knowing him? Just serve the rice already." As the couple sat down on the kang, Feng Hua asked, "What did the elder come for?" "What else? It's about the same issue from a few days ago," Peng Chunlai said as he picked up a steaming pancake and took a bite. "What, is the elder unhappy that our lake rice is selling well?" Feng Hua curled her lip. At that moment, Su Shu, who was still driving on the highway, didn't know that her order for 1,000 kilograms of rice had helped the store owner open up a market in the grain wholesale market the next day. Though it wasn't a blockbuster success, it attracted quite a few inquiries. The store owner, a savvy businessman, claimed that the purchaser intended to sell the rice in the South for profit. As a result, a considerable amount of stock sold, and even a good number of new orders for Peng Village came in. Just a few days ago, Peng Chunlai was celebrating this development. But in the last 2 days, a group of elders led by the elder went so far as to tell him that it might be better to stop selling the grain and keep it. Peng Chunlai had a headache. Wasn't the initial idea to develop production and fuel growth by leading the entire village to work hard and produce so much grain? If they stopped selling, what about the orders, the money? Were they supposed to forgo earning? Nowadays, whether it was going to the doctor or buying medicine, it all required money. You couldn't just take a bag of rice to the hospital. The doctor wouldn't accept that. He truly didn't understand. It was these same elders who had proposed using the spring water for farming. Now that they had the grain and buyers ready to pay, what did they mean by not selling? If not selling, then what was the grain for? Were they going to eat it themselves or what? An endless stream of orders flew in. Peng Chunlai really couldn't bring himself to say that their village's rice wasn't for sale anymore. Many people in the village relied on this money to get married, have children, and send their kids to school. Who could just stop selling like that? Although one had to listen to the elders, Peng Chunlai figured that if things became untenable, he could at least sell this batch first to see how things went. After leaving the village chief's home, Elder Peng walked back to his house, hands clasped behind his back, nodding his head in greeting as numerous villagers said hello along the way. As he was about to reach his front door, a gaggle of bare-bottomed boys came rushing towards him, chattering excitedly. Elder Peng, a big jeep has come to your house." "It's been here before." Elder Peng squinted and looked forward for a while, then patted the heads of the young lads. "Go on and play, I have guests." The children scattered, and standing next to the jeep were 2 energetic young men. It was none other than Tang Zelen and Yuan Zio. They stood on either side of the rear of the vehicle. Upon seeing Elder Peng approach, Tang Zelen walked up to greet him with a smile. "Elder Peng." Elder Peng looked up. "You lad, why have you come again?" Although his words seemed somewhat annoyed, his facial expression didn't quite match his words. Being a junior, Tang Zelen knew that whatever the elder said was to be respected. He called over his friend to introduce him. "Elder Peng, this is my brother, Yuan Zio." Yuan Zio, always lively and cheerful, stepped forward to greet him. Yuan Zio pays his respects to Elder Peng. Good, a fine young man. Dark and sturdy at a glance," Elder Peng said. Yuan Zio looked at his friend with tears like waterfalls. He wasn't naturally dark, it was a tan. The village was small. News spread fast. The arrival of a big jeep became known to everyone within moments, and it was said that they were the military leaders of a Peng family member from years ago. Curiosity brought many villagers quietly to Elder Peng's house to join in the commotion. The villagers all knew. How could the village chief, Peng Chunlai, not know? He hadn't finished a packet of cigarettes when he caught wind of it and grabbed 2 bottles from a relative's small supermarket and headed over. It was said that in his youth, Elder Peng had fought in wars, although what wars were not specifically known. Nowadays, it was rare to see such sprightly octogenarians in the village. Moreover, a few years ago, The Peng family's grandson had died honorably in the service, and his Medal of Valor was sent home. Despite the fact that the Peng family's economic condition wasn't the best, everyone held them in high regard. Even the village chief, Peng Chunlai, greeted Elder Peng with utmost respect upon seeing him. When Peng Chunlai entered, Tang Zelen and Yuan Zio were sitting cross-legged on the Kang bed, chatting with Elder Peng. Seeing him carry in 2 bottles of liquor, Elder Peng raised an eyebrow. "Elder Peng, I heard some of the army folks were here. I knew you'd enjoy these. I brought 2 bottles for you to sip while you chat," Peng Chunlai said with a smile. After speaking, he looked towards the others. He recognized Tang Zelen, who had visited before, but not the slightly tanned young man beside him. Yuan Zio introduced himself. "Hello, village chief. My name is Yuan Zio. I used to serve in the army too, then I left and went into business." "Ah, good, good, please sit. Your visit to see Elder Peng is much appreciated." Turning to Elder Peng, he said, "My wife is preparing some snack dishes to bring over later. Here's some salted peanuts for now, Elder Peng. Shall we start with these?" "Put them down," Elder Peng said. "Ah." Peng Chunlai, delighted, placed 2 bottles of wine on the table and took a seat beside Grandpa Peng's bed stove. Grandpa Peng glanced at him, said nothing, and then turned to ask Tang Zelen, "How's the chief's health?" Tang Zelen smiled. "Great, he's still training me every day." "You always come all this way to see this old man. It must interfere with your work." "Not at all, I'm on leave. I can't stand sitting around at home. It's comforting to chat with you." Upon hearing this, Grandpa Peng felt gratified. Tang Zelen was a good lad. Anything he said sounded pleasant. His heavy expression from when he first arrived had also cleared up a lot. Tang Zelen was a cunning one. In his own father Tang Husheng's words, he was sharper than a monkey covered in fur since he was young, had more tricks up his sleeve than a wasp's nest, with a keen eye and quick hands. If it weren't for his exceptionally straight moral compass, Tang Husheng really wouldn't have known what to do with him. He was both relieved and worried when he joined the army. From the moment village chief Peng Chunlai entered the room, Tang Zelen sensed the tension between him and Grandpa Peng. He made a mental note of it, planning to ask when the time was right. Seeing Tang Zelen's gaze circling between him and the village chief, Grandpa Peng knew the young man must have sensed something. Rather than wait for him to ask, it was better to take the initiative. "Did you come from Sea City?" "Yes." "Nothing much going on in the city these days." Tang Zelen glanced at Yuan Zio, momentarily at a loss for words. "Grandpa, why do you ask that?" Seeing his reaction, Grandpa Peng had his answer and waved his hand. "Nothing." The more he said that, the more Tang Zelen felt something was up and asked a few more questions. The village chief then spoke up, explaining the recent issue with selling lake rice in the village, and in conclusion, sought the opinion of the 2 young men from the city about whether the village's development and reforms were in the right direction. Tang Zelen, a soldier, gave a slight smile and casually directed the village chief's question to Yuan Zio, his brother-in-arms who did business. But he himself distinctly noticed that the issue was much deeper than it appeared from Grandpa Peng's expression. Yuan Zio found the question perfectly suited for him and eagerly discussed the village's modernized development with the village chief at length. Meanwhile, Tang Zelen saw Grandpa Peng sigh inadvertently, prompting him to ask with concern. Grandpa Peng looked at his dry pipe, exhaled a couple of times and said, "Ziyading." "Ah, Grandpa, speak your mind without hesitation. If there's anything I can do, I will make sure to take care of it for you." Grandpa Peng's grandson was named Peng Ziajan. He had a simple and honest face and was sincere, down-to-earth, and honorable. He had been Tang Zelen's comrade in the special combat team. When Peng Ziajan was a new recruit, Tang Zelen found him interesting, stubborn, yet incredibly patient. Having grown up in the military district where everyone could make waves, Tang Zelen was genuinely challenged training the straightforward Peng Xiaojun. From the initial skepticism to finally emerging as an outstanding member of the Special Combat Team, Peng Xiaojun had truly won Tang Zelen's admiration. After many battles side by side, Tang Zelen especially liked this comrade. But in one attack against the enemy, Peng Xiaojun had fallen to the enemy bullets while giving his teammates hope to live. Tang Zelen still remembered, when he returned the medal to the martyr's family, how Grandpa Peng had caressed his grandson's medal with his withered old hands and said faintly, "As a soldier, to die on the battlefield is a great honor for my grandson." Sometimes people are like that, no matter how tough on the outside. A single sentence can pierce right through the heart. Back then Tang Zelen hadn't said a word. But ever since, whenever he was on leave, no matter the length, as long as time allowed, he would make sure to visit Grandpa Peng and look after Peng Xiaoging for him. Grandpa Peng tapped the ashes from his pipe and said, "A few days ago, Xiaoging came to me in a dream." Huh? Tang Zelen. Peng Sana had a rare dream, and when he woke up, his memory was crystal clear. In the dream, he saw his grandson who had fallen in battle, walking towards him in an olive-green military uniform, yet not saying a word, no matter how many times he called out. Peng Xiaojun stayed silent, and the old man wept profusely in the dream. It's said that it's not good for the deceased to speak to the living in dreams. Peng Sanai thought his Xiaojun, who had reached the underworld, was still considering his old man's feelings, his heart aching in the dream. It was night in the dream, and he stood at the door of his house. Xiaojun looked at him for a while, then turned and pointed towards the mountains behind the village. Peng Sanai did not understand what his grandson Xiaojun meant, only to see Xiaojun continuously pointing towards the murky sky, refusing to lower his arm. He walked up to his grandson, wishing to get closer to the child, but was unexpectedly shoved aside by Xiaojun, nearly tumbling to the ground. Just as he was about to speak, countless crows flew in from the murky sky. The innumerable flock of birds obscured the sun, covering the entire sky in an instant. Boom! The mountains and the earth beneath his feet were shaking. Peng Sanai couldn't even stand amidst the quaking world. He heard his grandson Xiaojun yell, "Grandpa, the earth is going to be destroyed, run!" The familiar voice in the dream urged him over and over to escape. Startled in the dream, Peng Sanai staggered, attempting to drag his grandson along to flee. But before he could reach Xiaojun's hand, Xiaojun's figure was already engulfed by the black smoke that rolled across the sky. Peng Sanai awoke from the dream with a loud shout, in the dead of night, his face drenched in sweat. The old man sat disoriented on his own Kang bed, draped in an overcoat and smoking throughout the night, his brows knitted with worry. When day broke, he strolled alone at the foot of the mountain, blowing off the curiosity of the villagers who wondered what he was up to, and made his way back home after a solo round. The scene in the dream was too vivid, so real that even now Peng Sanai felt as if the scenario from the dream could happen at any moment. Talking about relatives sending messages through dreams was too mystical. The old man hadn't figured it out himself and did not want to discuss it with others. But what he didn't expect was that night, not only he had dreamed of a departed loved one, but many of the older villagers had also experienced various dreams to different extents. Although the scenes in their dreams were not exactly the same, the fact that so many people dreamed of their deceased relatives at the same time had the older villagers, who pondered more deeply, worried after discussing among themselves. They couldn't help but feel that something about the sky was about to change. What could it be? The younger people in Peng village were full of drive, and the elders did not have the heart to dampen their spirits. Peng village had been poor for many years, and every household longed for better days. With the old folks full of apprehension and the young ones bustling with enthusiasm, The atmosphere in Peng Village became strangely eerie these days. The elders weren't sleeping well for several days, all feeling that the situation couldn't continue this way, so led by Peng Sanai, they went to seek out the village chief, Peng Chunlai. But even Peng Chunlai was in a fix. When Peng Sanai returned, he was still pondering over what could possibly be done about this situation. Whether it was because he was old and wise or because their departed loved ones truly did come to warn them, Peng Sanai had a nagging feeling that trouble was brewing for Peng Village, and if it really came, it might not be minor. When Tang Zelen suddenly visited, Peng Sanai was curious for a moment, wanting to ask about the situation in other places. After listening to the entire story from Tang Zelen, he did not immediately express his opinion. If Tang Zelen didn't understand Grandpa Peng's temperament, he might have taken his words as idle chatter over tea and leftovers. But he knew all too well that the stubborn old man despised all things frivolous and superficial. Since the issue gave Grandpa Peng such trouble, even if it sounded a bit superstitious, Tang Zelen didn't think it was nonsense. Where he served, next to vast forests rarefied with human presence, those ancient woods held many unsolved mysteries. Not every legend had an answer, otherwise they wouldn't be called secrets. Grandpa Peng said Xiaojun had come back to see him, and had even issued a warning of imminent danger. It was difficult to say whether it was right or wrong. What he was more curious about was what catalyst could have caused all the village elders to dream of their deceased loved ones simultaneously. Just this event alone was bizarre enough. Peng Mountain Village, remote and lost amongst the surrounding mountains, was quaint and serene, truly a wondrous place. Grandpa Peng didn't necessarily want Tang Zelen to offer any opinions. He just felt that talking to this younger man was like talking to his own grandson. In letters Xiaojun sent back in those days, he respected and admired him as his captain. Now Tang Zelen was a group captain, but in Grandpa Peng's eyes, he was still his grandson's old captain. After chatting with Grandpa Peng for a bit, a villager came over to ask Grandpa Peng for help. Grandpa Peng instructed, "Chunlai, take good care of things. I'll be right back." "Don't you worry, Grandpa. I'll be right here," Peng Chunlai said with a smile. Yuan Xiao and Peng Chunlai were having a spirited conversation, so there naturally wasn't any issue. In the middle of it, Tang Zelen interjected, "I'll go check on Xiaojun." So, seizing the moment while Grandpa Peng was away, he carried a bottle of liquor and walked towards the back mountain. Xiaojun's grave was not far from the foot of the mountain, yet it was buried in the best feng shui spot in Peng Village. The people of Peng Village believed that those who sacrificed themselves for the country and the public were great. The naive young Peng Xiaojun deserved to rest in the finest spot in Peng Village. Using his teeth, Tang Zelen pried off the bottle cap, poured 2 full glasses of liquor, placed one in front of Xiaojun's gravestone, and threw back the other. "My good brother is late this time. Don't blame me." Midway up the mountain, a gentle breeze carried a lingering chill. He sat cross-legged in front of his comrade, drinking and talking to himself, sharing some heartfelt thoughts. Looking down from midway up the mountain, the entire Peng Village unfolded before his eyes. In the evening, smoke curled from each household, the sunset glowed like fire, the tired sun had already settled down, and the moon eagerly awaited the new day. Gazing at the peaceful and beautiful little village before him, he took a sip of liquor and suddenly gave a faint smile. "You little rascal, not bothering us with dreams to chat with your grandpa, but instead scaring him. Peng Village is so much better than the polluted cities. If such a good place faces difficulties, how can other places survive? Brother came to see you today. I'll be staying at your house tonight, sleeping in your bed, eating your food. If you miss your brother, come see me tonight just like you visit Grandpa. Hear me? Otherwise, it'll be a waste of the booze I brought for you." He didn't care if anyone behind him heard his words. There was scenery, there was liquor, there were friends. Isn't this just what Tang Zelen loved the most? Through wind, through rain, through barrages of bullets, what's it all for? Hey, for nothing at all. As long as he could see a peaceful and serene scenery like the one before him every time he returned on leave, he felt that no hardship or weariness mattered. Even if standing guard with a rifle for a lifetime was his fate, he felt it was damn well worth it. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe and like the video and comment down if anything wrong in the story, and if have any suggestion to a new novel or want next part of any series, comment down. Our target is to get 1K subscriber. There will be SUPRISC for all of you. Stay tuned.